As you know from watching my videos on YouTube, I am all about encouraging people to heal their inner child, to do that inner work that is stopping you from doing, being, or having everything that you want. Now, having done the inner work myself and traveled that path, I know that breath work is such an important part of that, which is why when I met the amazing Sylvia Adler, I knew that one day we would have a conversation so that she could lend her expertise to how you can include breath work when you're doing the inner work. So, Sylvia, I want to just say to you, thank you so much for sharing your time with me, your expertise. I always get so much out of having a conversation with you, whether we're just chatting, just to have a conversation about books that we love to read or
Mm.
breath work or whatever it is. I truly, truly appreciate having you in my life. And I thank you for your willingness to, let people know the importance of breath work. Because I think if you walk down the street and you picked out like 50 people and you asked them, do you believe you breathe correctly? They would probably all say yes. And then when give them some pointers, they would say, oh, well, so thank you, thank you, thank you for lending
Thank
your
you.
expertise.
Thank you. I feel honored and it's a privilege to be here to share something that I know to be so vital and important to all of us. And just as you say, most people aren't even aware of how they breathe. It just happens. Thank God for that, because otherwise we wouldn't last a minute.
Exactly. One of the things that I really love about not just the work that you do, but the story you share about how breath work came into awareness for you. Can you share that?
Oh, sure. So I was 11 or 12 years old when my maternal grandfather was a German guy, and he had studied the 5 different types of yoga. So there's Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Kriya Yoga, Kundalini Yoga, and Hatha Yoga. And he had studied all of them. I still actually have his little books over there. Um, so when I was 11 or 12 years old, I had the true blessing of having this man, my grandfather, teach me all about diaphragmatic breathing and different types of breaths to achieve different things in life. So people think, and this is a misconception that people have, and I get so many people, Nancy, telling me, oh, I thought about you today because I wasn't breathing. So I took a deep breath. And it's like, I'm glad you thought about me, but that's not how to do a deep breath, right? So, and it's not all about taking deep breaths. It's about learning to breathe better, to improve your daily breath so that you're consistently breathing better throughout the day. People think breath work is all about getting a yoga mat and lying down and doing all sorts of weird things and screaming. And I mean, I've seen and experienced all sorts of different breath work. So that's great for people who are therapists and use it as a way to deal with trauma, etc. But that's not what I teach. I teach functional breathing. I want people to become aware of how vital it is to breathe properly. And our breath affects every single cell in our body. So all of our organs, everything depends on our breathing. And when we breathe dysfunctionally, which is what most people do, um, our systems suffer the consequences because they're not getting the proper nutrition that they need. So, I mean, you know that you've opened a can of worms, Nancy, because once I get going, it could be 10 hours. Okay, can you please shut up now? Because it's getting
We,
boring.
Sylvia, one of the things that just really love every time I hear you share your story, your message, um, I think about an 11-year-old girl who was open to the teachings of her grandfather and how you took it in. But as children, we don't realize that we're actually stepping into an awakening.
Right.
And, there are so many people who say, "Well, I've become more awakened." And the thing is like we have so many awakening experiences, but we often see them as tragedies or dark nights of the soul. I think divorce is a huge one. I speak from experience. I thought end of the world. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do? Um, so there's always different, I don't want to say levels. I think the best word is expansions, because we can expand and contract in our awakening. And there's all different expansions of awakening, and breath work is one of those.
Yeah.
As a child, I had asthma so bad. And when when I first started learning about breath work, I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because usually what they would do every time I was hospitalized, they would give me one of those, I don't know what they're called, those things you blow in the tube and the marble goes up to the top, and then you let the marble go down to the bottom. And when I first started learning about breath work, I thought, well, that is what they do. They teach people like that we need to really, you know, open up our diaphragm or expand our diaphragm. And I don't want to steal your thunder because you explain it so much better, but it just makes so much sense when
Mhm.
you listen, when you're open to listening to how
Yeah.
this can impact you. And one of the reasons that I asked you to have this conversation with me is because sometimes when you're being impacted by negative childhood experiences and memories, it can be difficult to stop the momentum of the pain,
Mhm.
or the feelings or the emotions that you're going through. And I often talk about creating a happy list, but I think maybe sometimes, we could be so in the negativity of the feeling or the emotion that maybe we don't even have that ability, that mindset to reach for our phone and look at our happy list. So I'm I'm really grateful that you're willing to have this conversation with me and talk about, okay, let's breathe through it. And so I am going to let you take over.
Thank you so much. So, yeah, you mentioned asthma, and I mean, I believe now we understand that asthma is actually a psychosomatic. It's so linked to emotional, psychological
Absolutely.
issues, right?
Look at
And
my
it's
childhood. It was full of, physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse. Is it any wonder? But, at the time in childhood, you think, oh, this child is always having these asthma attacks. But when you look at the bigger picture and you can see the cause and effect, it's amazing.
right, right. Excuse me. Oh, And I mean, what happens to me very often is that there's so much that I want to share with people. And sometimes it's like, where do I start? Because and for me, I mean, truly, Nancy, it comes down, as with everything in life, it is creating the awareness, right? The
Right.
self-awareness in this case of how am I breathing? What does that feel like? And what is it doing for me? So the simple fact that I may get through to people to create a bit of curiosity around breath work, because a lot of people have really no concept, no understanding of what breath work are. They have these ideas that it's some guru thing, I mean, people just close their mind because, oh, yeah, yeah, it's whatever, right? No, it's what you do every single day, 24 hours a day, you're breathing. I mean, Dr. Weil says it very clearly. It's the most important thing you do every single day. And in order to improve your health, if he says, if I'm to reduce it to one tip, it's to learn to breathe better, right? And it's the thing that we least think of because it's thanks to the autonomic nervous system, it happens automatically, right?
Right.
But it affects, as I mentioned before, every single cell of our body. Now, what I teach is functional breathing. I teach people different types of breaths There are some that you can do anytime during the day. There's some that are specific for calming the nervous system. They tend to be longer exhales. And there's uplifting ones, which are designed to create energy in the body. If you're feeling tired or lacking of energy, there's the uplifting breaths, which tend to be different. They tend to be a longer inhale and a sharp exhale, and that gets the energy going. And then breathing, yawning and sighing. I
Mm.
think I mentioned that to you ladies on Monday, right? I mean, it's a natural urge. We're born with this. Sometimes we yawn, and what is the yawn? It's the body saying, "Give me more oxygen because I need to activate the vagus nerve so that I can go into the parasympathetic nervous system and relax and restore and digest and do whatever renewal or healing I need to do." So that's the body's wisdom. I need more oxygen, so let's cause this yawn that just allows all that oxygen to go into your body, right? And then sighing is a way of releasing tension. Some people, oh, they don't sigh because it's considered rude or whatever silly notions society has imposed on us. But there's intentional or purposeful sighing where you can go and just shake it off and and that is a wonderful way of just getting that energy to move and releasing some stress or anxiety that you may be feeling, right?
You know,
So,
I'm gonna just interject here a minute for because um, one of the things that I think is really important, what you just said about releasing the energy. And, I have a background in martial arts as a student competitor and teacher in the martial arts. So when we are learning, I'll say the moves, the katas, the techniques, or whatever, we are also taught that breathing is so very important with the movement
of course,
because not only like to absorb a punch, but to give a punch, punch out. And what you just said to me, or what you just said, not to me, but to everybody, is I wanted to stop you there and interject this because it's so important to remember that breath is the energy of the body. Breath is the life force. That's the way that I was taught. And I know I've heard you say the same thing. So it stands to reason, if you like, you can take nothing away from this conversation that Sylvia and I are having, is when you are feeling sad or vengeful or angry or remorseful or ashamed or anxious, you're depleting the life force, you're giving away your power. And the fastest way that you can take that back is breath work.
absolutely. Because what tends to happen when we're stuck in those situations,
Yeah,
we immediately constrict everything, including the breath.
right.
And you've heard me mention this many a time, and most people don't even know how many times we breathe daily. So because of our dysfunctional breathing, which means that we're breathing very shallow and very fast, we're breathing between 20,000 and 30,000 times every single day. The ideal should be closer to 11,000. So that's even less than half of what we're doing. So again, my intention is to help people develop a daily breathwork routine that is incorporated into their day. You can be standing in a line at CVS waiting to pay for your whatevers, and you can be doing your breathwork and nobody knows, right? Because it's just truly bringing the awareness to your breath and going down to doing mindful breathing, slower breathing. I mean, a lot of people think it's all about taking these deep breaths, and it really isn't, because very often people end up over oxygenated because there needs to be a certain ratio of carbon dioxide in our blood in order for the oxygen to get absorbed at a cellular level. If we don't exhale properly, that ratio gets messed up. And a lot of times we breathe in a lot, but that oxygen isn't getting absorbed by the cells. So it's just kind of like going around. So it's really easy to learn. And that's my whole thing. It's so easy to learn. And it's just a matter of becoming aware on a consistent basis. How am I breathing? Understanding it's the most important thing you do every single day, other than drinking water and sleeping. And I could go on. But truly, I mean, breathing is the most important thing you do every day. So if you can learn to slow it down, sorry, that by itself, one of the breaths that I teach as the basis for everything is a diaphragmatic breathing, right? Because that is actually breathing using the diaphragm. When we do this shallow breathing, this poor diaphragm, the muscle that controls our breathing, that is at the bottom of our lungs, are you choking? Okay. Um, I mean, what happens to the muscles when we stop using them, right? They get lax, they get weak, and that's what happens with our diaphragm. So when I teach people to start doing the diaphragmatic breathing, it automatically wakes the diaphragm up. It's like, oh, that's right, I'm meant to be doing this properly. So from then on, you're helping everything, because when you do diaphragmatic breathing, you're actually giving your internal organs a massage. So it
And when
helps
you say,
circulate.
just for people that don't know, could you explain diaphragmatic breathing? I mean, because explain
Sure.
that, please.
So basically, shallow breathing is just you breathe and you're breathing kind of like up to here, right? It's not going anywhere. It's just getting stuck there. And that's why a lot of times people have such low energy, because they're not oxygenating the body. So diaphragmatic breath or belly breath is when you learn to breathe and send that air down to your stomach. So if you put your hand on your stomach and you breathe in, send it in so that you feel that stomach expanding. That's belly breath, okay? So you send it all the way down, then feel the chest. And then when you're exhaling, you contract the stomach muscles so that you start emptying the stomach first and then the chest. So that is proper belly breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, is when you actually send that oxygen down to the stomach and then empty the stomach first. Now, for people who haven't done it, sometimes it takes a little bit of practice, first of all, to get everything coordinated. But to me, breathwork is mindful breathing, when you are actually becoming the boss of your breath, as opposed to just letting it happen, however, right? So that is what diaphragmatic breathing is. And that impacts everything. It helps to lower the blood pressure. I mean, I could spend hours talking about that. I wanted to share this great book. It's called The Breathing Cure.
Mhm.
And that, I mean, it's fairly thick, goes into a whole lot of different things. So there's 3 books, and I shared them on Monday with you ladies too. This one is a bit short, I mean, but it's truly a wonderful, there we go. Breathwork by Jane Rivers.
Mhm.
She goes into the benefits of doing breath work, how it helps calm down the nervous system, the vagus nerve, lower blood pressure. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And then there's this one by James Nestor, Breath. So if you're all interested in learning a little bit more about your breath,
And it's
I
always nice to get these book recommendations from someone who, like yourself, is an expert on breath work, because and the first book that you held up, I saw how many, you know, uh,
tabs.
places you had it marked, yeah, that kind of thing. And so, like, this is a book that someone who knows about this is reading and absorbing. So, you know,
Yeah,
there you go. Thank you for sharing those.
of course, absolutely. And I mean, just something that might pique people's interest. I've been on this specific program for 6 months now, and I've been able to release 35 or 36 pounds so far, and it's been wonderful, very comprehensive. But one of the things she shared, the coach shared a video with us, and it explains what happens to the fat when our body burns that fat, when you're on some diet or program or lifestyle change, whatever you want to do or call it. That fat we think gets used up and we don't even think about it. Well, there's this Stanford professor who's a chemistry professor, and he explains that we actually exhale it.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Like, what? And so that's why for me, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so important to do the proper breathing when I go to work out. I mean, what you mentioned about your martial arts, I mean, that's exactly it. When you're going to exert the effort, you push out, and a lot of people end up herniating themselves because they take a deep breath, and that's when they try to do and that's really terrible for you, right? So it's,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, again, breath work is just vital for everything.
Yeah, I mean, I was always taught to breathe in with the receiving and breathe out with the letting go. And, it holds true for every breath work that I've been taught to do.
Yeah.
So you've shared so much really great information, and I really appreciate it. Now I'm going to ask you, would you mind, for those people who are experiencing some type of a dark night of the soul, or maybe they're in that loop of negative feelings and emotions, what is the breath work that, like, the go-to breath work that you would suggest for them? And before you do one of those, I also wanted to ask, I know there is breath work where you breathe in, you hold it, and then you exhale. And then you breathe in and you exhale. So what are the benefits between holding it, between taking it in and letting it out? Those two things.
Thank you for asking. And that is so important to understand. Coming back to the carbon dioxide. So when we, excuse me, when we breathe in, the oxygen goes through the bloodstream to our cells. Okay. If the when we breathe in through the nose, and let me just mention this because this is very important, there's too many people who breathe through the mouth, and that is terrible, 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 because the air isn't getting filtered. Um, it's not getting warmed up. It also changes the alkalinity of the air going in. But most importantly, when we breathe through the nose, we are creating nitric oxide. And nitric oxide, NO, is vital for that oxygen to get absorbed by the cells. Okay, so when we're breathing through the mouth, we're not creating that nitric oxide. So there, by itself, we're creating an oxygen that is not being absorbed properly, right? So it just gets kind of like stuck in a loop because it's not getting absorbed. So when we take a proper breath in, and by proper breath, I mean diaphragmatic breath, as I explained it right now, right? You breathe to the stomach, and then if you hold it there, and that's part of the box breath, which I will explain. When you're holding that breath, you're helping to expand your blood vessels. Okay, so when you breathe in and you hold the breath, your blood vessels are expanding, so it's allowing for more of that oxygen to get through to the bloodstream and hopefully to the cells if the carbon dioxide is at the right ratio. Um, and part of what happens when you exhale and hold that exhale, that is when the carbon dioxide levels get rectified. Okay, so that is important because that is allowing for that oxygen to get absorbed at a cellular level and utilized properly. Then when the cell absorbs the oxygen and releases the carbon dioxide it has emitted from using the previous oxygen, right? So that's the constant flow. So people have this misconception too that carbon dioxide is toxic and we need to exhale it all. And there always needs to be some in the body because otherwise, as I mentioned before, that oxygen does not get absorbed properly by the cells.
And how does
So
that help with the breathing? How does it help with the fight or flight
it helps
emotion?
because it gets the, when we're doing deeper breathing, Nancy, we're activating the vagus nerve.
Mhm.
Okay, and some of you may not know the vagus nerve is the most important nerve in the body. It comes from the brain, it goes down and innervates the entire body. All the organs are touched by this nerve. And it's the one that helps us get into the parasympathetic mode. And that is when we get into the rest and restore and digest mode. When we're sleeping, that's the mode that the body is in. And that's why it's so important to sleep, because that's when the body is healing itself.
Mhm.
So it is important to learn to do these calming breaths, because by doing that, you're activating the vagus nerve, which then helps you relax. Okay. When you relax, that is when you're able to do the proper breathing, calm down the nervous system, bring down blood pressure. There's a whole lot of things that happen. So whenever we're in a panic mode, we go like this. The
Yeah,
same with when you're feeling cold. What do we do? Oh my God, it's cold. And guess what? You're going to feel that cold more
right.
because you're like this. So it's the same with pain. It's the same with trauma. It's the same with anything. Anytime we get stuck in this mode, either physically or mentally, we are getting stuck in this loop where we keep recurring it, right?
Yeah.
So one of the most important things you can learn to do is do these diaphragmatic breaths and the box breath, which I believe I taught you all on Monday, right?
Mhm.
That is for me one of the most beautiful breaths. It was actually created by a Navy SEAL and it's used by the Navy SEALs. And when they go into combat, they teach their soldiers to do this precisely to stay grounded and to not let their fight and flight take over, right?
Yeah, and
So
one of the reasons that I was so excited for you to share this box breath is because you and I had a conversation a few days ago about someone who maybe is not familiar with doing inner work, interpersonal work, emotional letting go. Um, this is really helpful because when you're still being triggered by something that happened in your past, when you're reliving that memory, if it's sexual trauma, sexual abuse, you can actually think about it. And as you're reliving it, you just are feeling it all through your
yeah,
body,
yeah,
whether it could be physical violence or verbal, someone's verbally assaulting you, and you just relive it and you are taking it into your body. I really, really think that people who are experiencing that will benefit from this box breath. And so thank you so much for
of course.
sharing this.
Of course, my pleasure. And this brings me to, I mean, not everybody who listens here is either a woman. I don't know if we're all women listen to this thing. And maybe not all of us are mothers, but those of us who had kids, at some point we were taught the Lamaze birth uh,
Breathing.
classes, right?
Mhm.
And a big chunk of it is breath work and learning to breathe and calm down, because when you breathe and calm down, the pain levels go down. Okay. When you get like that, you feel it more. So when you learn to breathe, it brings the pain levels down. But very importantly, it teaches you to focus on something outside of you. So
Mhm.
you're automatically stepping away from that all-encompassing feeling that you're having, and it's like, oh, okay, that's right, this is not happening right now. Centered in the present, calm down, and you're able to disconnect from that mental situation, because that's what it is, right? It's not a physical, it's not happening right now. So that is why breathwork is absolutely imperative, because it helps you to calm down, but then also to focus on something outside of you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So would you like to go through the box breath?
Sure, of course. And I mean, it's best if you practice the diaphragmatic breath first because it just helps you breathe deeper. Otherwise, you might be just breathing up here, and that's not the point. The point is to truly learn how to send that air down and feel that balloon forming in your stomach and then fill your chest. And just practice those a few times. And then what happens when you do the box breath is that you're going to breathe to a count of 4, inhale to a count of 4. You're going to hold that breath for a count of 4. Then you're going to exhale slowly to a count of 4. And then, very importantly, you're going to hold that empty space, that exhale, for a count of 4. So it's all about learning to hold the breath in and out. And that is where the magic happens. Okay. So I will go ahead and demonstrate. So I will start. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Hold. Now, I don't know if you notice the sound that I make when I'm exhaling.
Mhm.
Some people exhale with their mouth closed, and that's perfectly fine. What I'm doing is called ocean breath or ujjayi breath. So if you've ever cleaned your glasses, you go, right? So it's the same concept. And what that does is when you're doing the ocean breath, that sound mimics the sound of an ocean wave and is relaxing. Okay. So it's all about just bringing the nervous system to calm down. Now, as I say, you can do it with your mouth closed, but I'm still doing it because that is part of the whole relaxation thing. So that's basically the box breath. It's not rocket science, it's not difficult, but it's deeply, deeply impacting and helpful.
And it's one of those things that's really easy to do, and yet it's really easy not to do.
Right?
Again, life is all about choices. We
Yeah.
can say, oh, I learned this breathing technique and I am going to do it. And then after like 3 days, I don't know, life happens and you forget about it.
Yeah.
So we need to make conscious decisions and create daily practices where we are putting this in our daily habit of what we choose to do on, every minute.
Yeah.
And I think even, at the beginning, it's very helpful to set a timer. Not something jarring like, "Ooh," but set a timer and
Yeah.
just remind yourself, oh, am I breathing? Am I doing deep breathing? Am I practicing breath work? Or am I doing like chest breathing? I call it chest breathing, where
Yeah.
somebody's just
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
anyone who is a lot of times in that fight or flight mode, it's a lot of chest breathing.
Mhm.
And when you're in fight or flight mode, if I equate it to like martial arts, so fight or flight, it means like, am I going to run away or am I going to stand and fight? Well, if you are not deep breathing, then you are not fully engaged in your whole body to be able to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So this is so valuable. And Sylvia, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you so much, and I love what
Oh,
you
me
do.
too, my dear. Thank you. I just wanted to share something quickly, if I may.
Sure,
For
sure.
anyone who's suddenly having a panic attack for whatever reason, sometimes these trauma memories, I think, can cause or bring on a panic attack. There's a very simple technique that is breathing through a straw.
Mm.
So just take a breath and then blow it as hard as you can through the straw. And that kind of like does something to help you step away from that panic mode and then start doing your slow breathing. Okay, remember what I mentioned, the coherent breathing, which is what we should all be doing to bring the 20,000 times down to 11,000 times, which is the ideal. It is all about learning to breathe slowly and softly throughout the day, not about taking deep breaths, but about slow breathing less, because you're breathing less times. You're just breathing more efficiently. And just by doing that, you can maintain a level head, let's say, and just maintain a sense of calm. And if you start going there, do your straw, or then do the box breath and just okay, and look out, look out, look out, and concentrate on the fact that this isn't happening right now. Whatever you're
Yeah.
imagining or remembering or feeling, it is not happening right now. So do your box breath 3 or 4 times, get to a place where it's like, okay, I'm fine, I'm safe, I'm safe. Keep telling yourself, I'm safe, I'm safe.
That is so good. And what you something that came up for me when you were talking about the straw breathing, I think that we've been taught also to breathe into a paper bag. What is the benefit of that
I think it's basically the same kind of thing.
as the straw?
Yeah, to
Okay.
to prevent hyperventilation, which is you're just breathing so much that you end up passing out because it's all oxygen that isn't getting absorbed by the cells because your carbon dioxide has got messed up, right? So that's
Yes,
why
the technical
one of the
term. I love
um,
it.
so
Yeah.
that's why it's so important to learn this box breath and learn to hold that exhale, because that is when you're getting your carbon dioxide levels to where they should be, and then the absorption happens properly.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sylvia, thank you again for sharing time with me, sharing your expertise, and for anyone listening, leave us some comments. Let us know if you decided to try this breathing, if you're in that when you get in that fight or flight mode, or if you're still being triggered by those negative childhood memories, or when you think about them, like Sylvia said, and you can remind yourself that it's not happening right now. It's a memory that you're thinking about and reliving. So let us know how this works for you. In the
And
meantime, go ahead.
also, just quickly, I want to selfishly mention that if you're interested, I do give private classes and Zoom. I mean, in person, I'm in Orange County, but Zoom is just perfect. And I'm available here. So if you're interested in just creating something, whenever I do a session, I send a little handout that has all the breaths and explains to help you precisely to support you in developing a daily habit, which is where it's all at.
Absolutely. You want to get in touch with Sylvia for breath work. I just absolutely cannot stress that enough. But her information will be in the description. So the link to her website will be in the description. So in the meantime, Sylvia, thank you so much for being here. And for all of you who are watching this at a replay, thank you for watching. Leave your comments, leave your questions, and have a wonderful, beautiful rest of your day,
Thank
whatever
you,
time
Nancy.
you're watching this.